Hi, welcome to Swedish Plant Guys. Now we've made a video called All You Need to Know About Zamioculcas Zamiifolia, or the ZZ plant. And if you haven't watched that video, please go and check that out, and then you can come back to this. And we thought that we would also tell you how to propagate the plant if you want to have more plants from your one plant. And as usual, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, if you like what you see, don't hesitate to subscribe. Please like, share, and hit that bell as well so you get a notification every time we put up something new. Now, today we're going to tell you 3 different ways on how to propagate your ZZ plant. And we're going to start off with the one that is the easiest way, and by that I mean that you will get almost 100% success from this way of doing it. However, it takes a little bit of a time to get it started. Now, the ZZ plant have something that we call rhizomes, or underground stems. I think the exact English term for these bulbs or these potato-like forms are tubers. And let's see. So I can show you here. These are the tubers, or the rhizomes. And as I've said before, these small potato-like bulbs, they actually store water, nutrients, proteins, and other goodies that the plant wants. So if something happens to the foliage of the plant, it can actually send out new stems or stalks from this point, because it has all of that stored energy. This means that the easiest way to propagate this plant, because this plant is actually standing in quite a large pot. It is 17 centimeters big, approximately 7 inches. And it also means that we have several plants here. It's not one plant, it's actually a couple of plants that have been put together. Because each plant actually has one or several of these small tubes. Now I can look here that I would probably be able to separate this plant into 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 or more plants. And what you do then is that you divide the tubers here. You make sure that every new plant that you create from this has at least one tuber for it. So you just separate the tubers from each other. Now that's easier said than done, because it has quite an extensive root system here. So when you're going to start to try and divide this up into different plants, it's going to take quite a time to divide and separate all of these roots. And be as careful as you can, and as soft as you can, that you don't hurt a lot of the roots. But these roots could also be intertwined, so that you will never be able to separate them without hurting the roots. But it's not a problem, because you can cut off some of the roots without harming the plants in any way. But if you do that, make sure that you use a scissor, a shearer, or a very sharp knife that you have cleaned before. It needs to be clean, because if you have some bacteria or fungus or anything on the tips of those tools, you might be harming the roots. You might be transferring those to the roots, and you could get a fungus infection. But if you just make sure that they are cleaned, it's not a problem to cut off some of the roots. Now, when you have separated these tubers from each other, and let's say that we have 5 different plants from this one plant here, then you just repot it, and make sure that you repot so that the tubers are covered with soil. You need to have the soil above the tubers, because they never want to have any sunlight on them or any light at all. So they need to be covered in soil. That's all you need to think about. You can use any type of soil. Since you don't you don't have a juvenile plant that you're trying to recreate or trying to grow. This is actually a finished plant. You don't have to have any special soil. And like we say in the All You Need to Know video, you don't have to be picky on choosing what soil you use for the Zamioculcas. You can use any type of normal planting soil that you get in the shop. But make sure that you cover the tubers in soil. Otherwise they will be damaged and then you will have a problem. But from this one plant you can actually get 4, 5, maybe 6 or more plants. And then you just place them somewhere fairly light but not direct sunlight, and they will continue to grow. And then you have more plants from one. So that's the first thing you can do. Okay, so the second way to propagate your Zamioculcas Zamiifolia or the ZZ plant is to make a cutting of one of the stalks here. Now, you don't have to make a cutting by cutting off the stalk. If you are, for instance, moving your plant and you accidentally injure it and one of the stalks breaks off, that's a perfect way to use that as a cutting. But I don't have any injured stalks here, so I'm actually going to make a cutting out of this plant here. Now I'm using a knife for this. You could use a shearer or a scissor as well. Make sure that it's cleaned before you make that cut. And then you just take one of the stalks here and cut it off like this. And this will be your cutting. And what you're going to do now is very simple. You're just going to take a vase or a glass and you're going to fill that with a little bit of water and add your new cutting like this. That's it. Very, very simple. However, there are a couple of things you need to consider. First of all, I would like you to take this cutting here and just lay it somewhere and let it dry in the cut for about 24 hours, one day. Because you have an advantage by this new cut that it starts to dry out and starts to callus a little bit over this cut. So after a day, when you let this dry out, you actually take this, you fill up some water in your glass and you add the cutting like this. That's it. Never add too much water. I would say 1 to 2 inches of water here. If you have a vase that is larger than my glass here, never put water so that it reaches the bottom leaves here. If you're lucky, you will get some growth of roots from these points here from the leaves. However, you have a fairly big risk of these leaves rotting, and then that will affect the whole cutting. So I would recommend you to add just 1 or 2 inches or 2.5 to 5 centimeters of water here, up to here. And then you exchange that water every week. If you could do it even often, that's perfect. But once a week is enough. You don't have to do it more than that. And during this time, now this is going to take quite a long time. It can take up to 2 months before you even see something here. As long as the leaves are green and the stem is looking fine, you don't have to worry. It will take some time. However, after a couple of weeks, you will start to see that you will get small roots coming out from the cut here. Now, if it doesn't happen and it's taking a very, very long time, I would recommend you to just take the cutting off when you add water every week and look at the cut. Because you could get a rotting of the cut here. If you see that it's rotting here, you don't have to throw away the whole cutting. What you can actually do is that you can start over. Just take a sharp knife and cut away the rot down at the bottom here. And then you start over again. You let it lay a little bit for 24 hours. Let it callus over that wound, and then you add it to new water again, like this. Now, It's not very often that you get rot on a cutting like this. So, but if it happens, make sure that you look for it. Otherwise, you can just keep it in here. And when you've got the new roots down here, make sure that they are 2 inches or longer, so 5 centimeters or longer, before you replant this cutting into soil. The roots need to come out a certain, at least 2 inches before you repot this plant. And when you repot it, make sure that it's a soil that has a good drainage to it. It needs to be moist, but it can't have too much water, because then the new roots here are going to die. But make sure that you have it a little bit moist all the time when you repotted it, at least for a couple of months. Then you can start, as soon as you see that there is coming up some new stalks or some new leaves from this cutting down from the soil here, then you know, okay, now it is a complete new plant. And you can treat it just like you treat any other ZZ plant. So that is the way number 2. Now this is very, very easy to do. But like I said, if you want to be 100% sure that you will do this and have a new plant from this, I would take maybe 2, 3 or 4 cuttings and put them together so that at least 1, 2 or maybe 4 will get roots and you will have a new plant from it. If 1 or 2 dies off, at least you have 1 or 2 left. So make sure to use more than 1 to be able to have 100% success. The third and final way to propagate your Zamioculcas zamiifolia is also quite easy. And if you have a good success with this one, you will get a lot of different plants. And we're also making cuttings, but this time we are making cuttings from each and every leaf here. So from this one cutting here, I could actually get 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, well, a lot of cuttings, right? So I'm going to now remove the leaves here. Now the most important thing here is that down at the bottom of the leaf, you have a little bit here where the leaf is attached to the stalk. You want to have that little part on the leaf. You shouldn't cut away that. So when you make the cut, you make the cut as close to the stalk as possible. I'm going to take away these leaves here. There, now I have a whole lot of leaves here, and we're going to make small cuttings out of each and every one of them. Now when you've made that cut and you have all these leaves, now what you need to do is actually the same as you did in the second way I showed you on how to propagate your Zamioculcas, and that is to lay these leaves down and let them dry for about a day. 12 to 24 hours, just let them dry a little bit before you put them into water. And when you do that, you can take a small glass like this and just add the cuttings down here so that they're standing up. This is the most important thing. You don't want the leaves, to be lying down in the water, because they will float or they will be fully submerged, and that is not the idea. You want them to be standing up like this, and then you add the water. Just a little bit, half an inch or a little bit more than 1 centimeter of water here, so that you have completely put that little bit you had close to the stalk, that is submerged underwater, and also a little bit of the leaf is submerged underwater. But most of the leaf is above the water surface like this. Now you need to exchange this water at least once a week, but you can do it every day if you want to. The more you exchange this water, the better. So you can't exchange it too often. You can only exchange it too seldom. So make sure at least once a week. And after a couple of weeks, what you will see is that there will start to form a little bit of a bulge here, so it's actually a tuber that is starting to form here, a new tuber. The tubers were, as I showed you before, are these rhizomes, these underground stems here that are filled with nourishment, filled with nutrients and water. They will start to form down here, and then they will send out small roots. And you keep it in water like this until those roots have become at least 1 inch long. So when they are 1 inch long or 2.5 centimeters, then you can repot this in soil. And when you repot it, make sure that the little tuber, this little bulb here underneath, it needs to be underground. It cannot be overground, it needs to be underground. And when you water, make sure that it's a little bit damp all the time, at least for a couple of months. Then when you see that a new stalk like this is starting to form from this leaf here, from that tuber in the soil, then you can start taking care of it like a normal Zamioculcas. Now, what will happen to that leaf is that this leaf is eventually going to die because it has been submerged underwater under a long time, and also when you planted it, it will be a little bit under in soil for a little bit here, just like it is in water. So that leaf will die, but that's not a problem because the little tuber is now alive and has a lot of water and nutrients, so that will continue to send out new growth. So don't be sad that the little leaf dies away, because it will die away. So that was the 3 ways I wanted to show you on how to propagate your Zamioculcas zamiifolia. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you try one of them and you have problems or something, please come back to the video, watch it again. Make sure that you're doing it exactly like I'm instructing in the video. I hope that you have success with these. Don't hesitate to make comments if you have success, so that we know that it has worked for you as well. Now, if you haven't subscribed yet to our channel, please do. Like, share, and hit that bell as well so you get notifications every time we put up something new. Until next time, hej då!